I'm Karl, and this is my wife, Cara.
Hi.
And we started realtimefarms.com together. And it's a website that makes it easy to know where your food comes from so that you can buy food that you feel good about eating. So we're going to tell you a little bit about what brought us to want to start this together, and then some more of the mechanics about how Real Time Farms works and how you can get involved. So personally, my story here is, I'm not sure if you can see, it's a picture of me with thought bubbles going up to the book The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. Has anyone here read that book? Great, yeah, so awesome. So that was a really, I'm not really an expert in food systems or ecology or anything like that. My background is a geek. I went to the University of Michigan for computer engineering in both undergraduate and for a master's degree. And after I graduated, I was lucky enough to land a job at Google out in Silicon Valley. And that brought Cara and I out there where we lived for about 5 years working there. And while I was out there, I really got into the spirit of entrepreneur, new companies, startups, technology. And I always had in the back of my head that I wanted to do a startup someday. And in the meantime, I read the book Omnivore's Dilemma and was learning more about issues of the food system. And when I first came across it, I was kind of in denial. I'm not sure if you've had this experience. I was like, it can't really be that bad, like it. I feel like
it's like toxins.
Yeah, it's like I kind of felt like, well, it must be some sort of like hippie conspiracy. I'll just not worry about that very well. But I think the more I read, it kind of all corroborated, and I was like, yeah, it really is that bad. So I'm not sure if you can see this slide here, but it's a barrel of oil pointing to a corn cartoon, and the corn is saying, I'm in everything. The corn is pointing to a picture of a bunch of cows eating corn, and then below that is pointing down to these cartoon pictures of poop. And the cute pictures of poop probably would have made you laugh, so I'm bummed you can't see it. But so I figured I could give you a whole talk about the issues of the food systems that I'm concerned with, but I figured I would go kind of deep into one issue just to give you an idea. I know Benet talked about this, the issue with monoculture. So corn is grown as a monoculture, a lot of the corn in this country. And what that means is that instead of being rotated out and planting legumes, for example, that would put nitrogen back in the soil so that when you planted corn again, the corn would be able to grow. If you grow the same thing every year, you need to actually put a lot of fertilizer in there so it can do it. And the yields are great, and you get more efficient production of corn in kind of a myopic standpoint, but it actually takes a lot of energy because the fertilizer, the nitrogen fertilizer requires natural gas to fix nitrogen into a form that can be put in the soil. And a couple of stats are it takes about 50 gallons of oil of fertilizer to actually make 1 acre of corn each season. And 1 acre of corn yields about 180 bushels, which is actually a pretty impressive number historically. But again, that's only because you're pumping it full of fossil fuels every year. And that was kind of an insight I had. I was like, whenever I thought about the reliance on fossil fuels, which is a finite resource that, a very large resource, but we're sort of dwindling away at it, I always thought about transportation and cars, but I never made that connection back to our entire food system. And it doesn't just stop with corn and corn syrup and direct corn products. It also relates to beef, because cows in this country are finished for about a year eating nothing but corn, and it'll take about a cow will eat about 125 bushels of corn in that year, or about 5,000 or 6,000 pounds of corn during that 250-day finishing period, and that translates to about 38 to 40 gallons of oil just to raise one cow to maturity, where you can get the beef out of it. And that's only accounting for the energy that went into raise the corn that they're eating. When you take into account all the other energy that goes into raising a cow, it's actually much greater than that. So anyway, another fun factoid about cows eating corn. Cows have these stomachs called rumens. If you read the Omnivore's Dilemma, they talk a lot about this. These special stomachs. They have an awesome several stomach system that lets them slowly digest grass. If we ate grass, we'd probably throw up like a cat or something like that, because our stomachs wouldn't be able to digest it. But cows can do that, and they're naturally meant to do that. But what they're not naturally meant to eat is corn. So if you feed it nothing but corn for a year, they get sick. And so in order to keep the cows healthy enough to survive that year, they actually have to give them routine additions of antibiotics so that they'll stay alive and be healthy enough to be slaughtered. Those antibiotics, as Jennifer was talking about, kind of stays in their systems and it stays in their manure. And by the way, when you have thousands and thousands of cows on one concentrated feeding operation, those antibiotics end up in their poop and into the environment around them. Typically, they'll actually just spray the manure on fields around, or they'll have, in the case of pigs, like a big poop lagoon that just kind of is toxic and leaches into the environment. A lot of people are concerned about antibiotics because when they're being used all the time, the bacteria is evolving to be resistant to the antibiotics. So people are actually really concerned that these super bugs are being created that'll actually make it hard for us to treat ourselves when we are occasionally using antibiotics. So anyway, that's just one issue, following corn all the way through to the poop, and just give you an idea of what really freaked me out.
Wrong way.
So anyway, I thought, well, how can I help? We had this goal of moving back to our hometown of Ann Arbor, where our friends and family are, and we love Ann Arbor even better than California. So we wanted to come back here, and I really wanted to do a startup, so I thought, how can I help in some way with my technology skills to help improve the food system? And my first idea was that maybe I could help farmers distribute their food into new areas, like smaller farmers that might only be selling at farmers markets. Maybe they could sell to more restaurants. Actually, it was kind of naive because when I talked to, in researching that idea, we moved back here and I had a lot of meetings. A lot of great people would reach out to me and I would talk to them, and I realized that there's actually a lot of amazing stuff already happening. And if you talk to a lot of people, you actually can find really good alternatives. But I feel like it's hard to find that sometimes. So what we wanted to do was create a guide, like I said, and it made it easy to know where your food comes from and find these good resources. And so anyway, I've been talking about this whole story like it's just me. All this, in the meantime, I was married to my wife the whole time. We got married before we moved out to California, and she was, experiencing this with me, and I was, telling her about this idea. And ultimately, by the time we launched Real Time Farms last year in April, she had joined me, and we kind of started the whole thing together. And she was really integral. She's been really integral in making this where we are today. So she's going to tell you about her journey to this.
Yeah, so when thinking about my path here, I got confused, and I was just like, how am I going to do this succinctly? Because my path was definitely not linear. It's like, does weird things. So I was trying to think of, well, what's the thread? And the thread, which actually we've ended up, people have been talking about it the whole day, has been that through the whole thing, or a lot of it, starting in college, I suffered with a lot of anxiety. And so I was always on sort of this edge of balance, which I guess the benefit to that was that my own self-sustainability was always really there, and being healthy, just me, was always a real big issue. So I always had to work really hard at that, and it made me really passionate about helping other people be healthy. And so with that, I went to grad school to be a therapist, and I started seeing clients out in California, and before you knew it, I was totally burnt out, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I had to call my parents, be like, I left grad school. And they're PhD professors, by the way. And they were like, that's great. Oh my God, your life's going to be so much better. You were so miserable. And I was like, really? Oh my God, this is amazing. So and then I was like, if I could swear, I would. But I was like, and then I didn't know what to do in my life because I had spent all these years doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. But it was unsustainable for me. And I remember calling my grandma, and I was like, oh, this is terrible. I can literally not get into work because I'm so burnt out. And my grandma said, man, that must be so hard on Karl. And I was like, what? Have you not been listening to anything I've been saying? Like, it's really hard for me. How dare you bring Karl into this? He's fine. He's happy. He's like geeking out at Google, And anyway, I kind of sat back for a little bit. I mean, I was like, do you know he eats at lunch? Like, I have PB&J. He's like duck or something, And I'm getting on a tangent. Anyway, so this is like my life. Okay, so then I was like, and so I said, after being really pissed at my grandma, I hung up the phone, And I sat back and I thought, you know what? She's kind of right. Like, if I'm not happy or healthy in my own life, it affects every single person around me. So it was really important that I find something that I felt like I was giving back to the world, but that it was really life-giving to me and to my family, which was Karl at the time. Still is, hopefully. So then I started this. I sold my grad school books, and I thought I could make money selling books. This is going to be amazing. So I wish you could see this picture, but it's our garage in California full of thousands of books organized by category. I was selling 40 or 50 every couple days and shipping them off and fighting 50-year-old men at estate sales for books. And I thought, this is not sustainable either. So I started an antique vintage button jewelry thing because that makes sense. And I thought, I really want to take old objects and give them new life, and it'll be super sustainable and happy, but fashionable and cool, and it's going to be awesome. So I started selling jewelry nationwide at boutiques nationwide, and it became relatively successful. But meanwhile, I'm reading Animal Vegetable Miracle and growing things in my garden, and it's Happy California, and Karl's starting this thing, and I'm like, oh, I got to join you. So maybe it's I have a really short attention span, but I think that we can make the biggest impact with this, so I switched to that. And so here we are. So what the heck is Real-Time Farms?
Okay, yeah, so Real-Time Farms is a crowdsourced nationwide food guide. It's a website. And when we say it's crowdsourced, it means that, kind of like Wikipedia, all of the information about farms, farmers markets, and food artisans is actually open to the public to edit. So we're obviously driving the charge, and we have a set of food warriors across the country who are visiting farms and doing interviews and taking videos. But if you happen to know like your favorite farm, you're a CSA member, or you go to the farmers market and you snap a photo of a particularly juicy melon, you can upload it to our website, and it'll make it easier for
Not
other
those
people to
kind of
find
melons.
Man, she's
Sorry.
on fire, I guess. So anyway, and the goal is to make an experience where it's easy to know where your food comes from, so you can find food that you feel good about eating. And our hypothesis is that if you understand where your food's coming from, you'll naturally make decisions that are better for yourself, or healthier for yourself and for the environment. And one key to this is creating a non-judgmental, open, and fun atmosphere on the website. So if you go to our website, you'll notice that it's a lot of imagery and photos of delicious food, for example, and of farms. And what we want to do is entice people by what excites them. I don't think that anyone wants to come to a website every day and look at a big poop lagoon with antibiotics floating in it, even if that's the reality. Oh, and plus, pooplagoon.com was taken, so we had to adjust. But Real-Time Farms was available. So anyway, we want to excite people, for example. But I think if you come to a website and you see a picture of a beautiful heirloom tomato and you say, that looks amazing, that looks delicious, I want to go buy that at a farmer's market this Saturday. And also I can see that tomato grown by, say, Tantra Farm in Ann Arbor is actually sourcing Zingerman's Roadhouse in town. I can actually go eat it on the menu as well. So it's making the connections about the options around you that you feel good about eating. And another part of our website is that we don't really make a prescription about what exactly you should care about, because there's a lot of food issues. Is it within a certain number of miles? Is it antibiotic free? Is it GMO free? I know I definitely have a set of things that I care about, but you might have things that are a little bit different. And I think that while we might each have a different take on what's really important, if you get engaged and you actually realize that my food is coming from a farm that I can learn about, I think, like I said, it'll naturally lead us in the right direction.
Okay, so we move back from California, we get home and we go, we're going to document the whole food system. It's going to be great. And everyone's like, yeah, good luck. Because there's over 2.2 million farms, so that's a lot of farms. And then if you want to document every food artisan, so every tortilla chip place, anything, this is a lot of things. So we knew it had to be crowdsourced. It had to be powered by every single one of us. And certainly every single one of us knows at least one or two farms, or will learn in the near future and participate and put it on Real-Time Farms. And so far, it's worked pretty well. And with the help of the food warriors, like Karl was saying, we rotate through major metropolitan areas in the country, and they sort of show everybody how you can participate and grow this guide. And in the first, actually, year and a half since we launched, there's over 3,000 farms, 6,500 farmers markets, 25,000 photos, and like 5,000 or 6,000 menu items. So, you know, we're on our way. It's happening a lot faster than we anticipated. So at the heart of all of this is, right, being able to know the farm. And so what does that mean, to really know the farm that you're buying from? There's a lot of things that you probably want to know. You want to know if they're saying that the cows are on the pasture, if they really are on the pasture. So images was really important. So you can submit any image from any farm you know. It's also really important how they're growing the food, and how they're raising the food. What are they feeding the animal, or how is the soil being treated, all that kind of stuff. So you can learn all about that, and you can also learn about where you can find that food then in other parts of the food chain, like at farmers markets or soon retailers, but right now at eateries nationwide. And so early on in all of this, we realized, well, people wanted to know where their food came from, but they really wanted to know where their food came from when they were going out to eat, too. And that was, like, a really big concern, because you could go to restaurants, and they have, like, the happy farm feeling, and they'll say, like, on some chalkboard, like, it's from this farm. Isn't that cool? Mm. And, you know, it's kind of cool, except, like, when McDonald's starts saying that they're using Michigan eggs, you know, and the next question is supposed to be, well, how'd you raise the chickens, you know? And nobody's asking that question. So we had to go a step further.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do is get restaurants to use our website to tell the story of their ingredients. So that way, in addition to just saying, okay, I'm going to go to the farmer's market and then I can see the farmer in front of me, a little bit harder to figure out is if I go out to eat around me, where can I find food that feels good to eat?
This is going downhill fast.
So anyway, the restaurants, this is actually our business model too. I mean, we have this crowdsourced food guide, but restaurants actually use a set of tools to tell the story of their ingredients in a really cool way. So here, for example, I'm not sure if you can really see this, but this is like a map view of all of the different food sources for Zingerman's Roadhouse. They're one of our first people in Ann Arbor. And you can see, and you can also see that it's not just local food; it's food across the world. So if you zoomed in closer, you'd see farms around you. But you also zoom out, and you can see they're getting pasta from Martelli Pasta in Italy, for example. On the menu itself, this is what I was really excited about, is that you know when you go, if you're going to go out to eat, you want to know, is the food look like it's going to taste good? So I'm going to go look at the menu, but now in the context of that menu, you can hover over any ingredient and it'll tell you the farm that grew that ingredient. And I think that's really cool because, like Cara was saying, if a restaurant just says we source local or we have these 3 farms, you don't necessarily know if it's like to what degree it is throughout the menu. And then when you click through the ingredient.
Like they're all beef hot dogs. Comes from Nyman Ranch or Cornman Farms.
Yeah, move a little further from the mic.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is. I'll just back up.
No, I'm just worried that the feedback. But anyway, here we've clicked through the beef link for the all beef hot dogs, actually corn dogs, at Zingerman's Roadhouse, and it's actually the beef is from Cornman Farms, which is Chef Alex at the Roadhouse has his own farm where they raise their own cattle, and it's really cool. And also, just like every other farm profile, you can see which farmers markets that's available. And it turns out you can buy some of the stuff from Cornman Farms at the West Side Farmers Market. So it's like not only could you find food you feel good about eating when you go out, you could even then potentially buy those same ingredients at a farmer's market near you and cook with it. So you might be wondering, this is great if it really happens, but how are you going to get restaurants to keep this up to date, right? So what we do is we make it so that it's really useful to them, not just on our website. They can take a little snippet of code, kind of like a YouTube embed clip, and put it on their website, and the whole kind of like a minimal styled thing that can be styled to match their own website is on their own website. So if you go to Zingerman's Roadhouse's website, the menu there is actually being powered by real-time farms, and you can have the same experience of hovering over ingredients and learning the story of the farm. So because it's actually powering their website, they update that menu every single day. And if you go to Real-Time Farms, it's extremely current information.
So we started to get really geeked by this. We didn't know how it would be, like what people would think of it when we first came out with the technology to do this. But quickly, everybody in Ann Arbor got really geeked. We went out to New York and LA, and so all of a sudden, within 18 weeks of launching, there's over 50 restaurants on there, including the White House, and you can now go and see state dinners at the White House and how they're sourcing, which is really cool. For national security reasons, they can only tell us what stuff's coming from their garden, but that's still cool. And so we started doing a lot of things. We talked with Alice Waters about food in schools, and would there be a way in the next 5-10 years to get every school online with all of their menus, K through 12, all university menus on dorms and hospitals and everything, so that we could know where all the food was coming from in all these different places. And they've been really excited by that idea. And most recently, we put up the Ann Arbor Public School System, which is doing this really awesome thing to bring in farm fresh food 3 times a week. And in September and October, because this month is National Farm to School Month. And normally they do it once a week, which is still a really big deal because sourcing that much stuff locally is a big deal. So you can learn about the farms that they use to do that. But you can imagine this technology being used on a lot of different things, which is really cool. And so the end ends with we are really excited to be here because we just really hope that everybody will participate and help to be the change in this. And there's a lot of, I mean, it's like taken off sort of faster than we anticipated. The Huffington Post recently wrote an article asking if real-time farms is the future of food guides, which...
Yes.
Yes.
Obviously.
And Food Inc. Named it their favorite new website, which is really cool. And in lieu of all this, as part of our sort of guide to transparency, we're going to be making all the data available publicly, which means that schools, researchers, other nonprofits, for-profits will be able to use the data to build really awesome stuff. So every single contribution that you guys make is going to have like an infinite reach.
And also, I just wanted to say, you know, even if you don't use real-time farms, if you just, one way you can help make the food system more sustainable is start asking the question. You do have a right to know where the food was originally grown. And if you can't find that out, even with a lot of research, it's probably not a good sign, unfortunately.
Thank you.